Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Immigration Live Q&A. I'm here with my co-host Alicia Backman-Beharry. How are you, Alicia?
I'm well. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good. I'm good. So it's been about 2 weeks since you and I have had a chance to do this. We were off last week. Well, I was off last week. I had a little trip down to Tennessee to figure out how to run a business. And we weren't able to get both of the lives happening. But yesterday was good for me, so I'm excited to be back with you again today.
Yeah, stuff they don't teach you in law school necessarily is how to run a business being a lawyer as well.
No, they don't. And I think in the discussions I've had with other professionals as they've booked consults with us, everybody feels the same way. You know, you go through your school, whether you're an engineer, you're accountant, whatever you are. And if you choose to run your own business, no one ever talks about, how you can actually do it profitably. So, I
Yeah.
know Alicia, she's kind of wired the same way I am. I'm speaking for you now, but we tend to just jump in and just help and help and help and then worry about the money on the back end. And sometimes that isn't always the most profitable or effective way of doing things. But there is a very, very good reason for doing those things too. And let's slide over. I want to share. I shared this with a few people yesterday, but I want to let everybody know about this. Our many immigration lawyers across the country that are members of the Canadian Bar Association are jumping on to help with this Ukraine crisis, offering pro bono services. So these are free. And so this is the site, and I'm not sure if I have a link in the description below, but you can just Google CBA Ukraine crisis. Maybe add an immigration in there, and that should take you to, you can get to this spot here. And then you can see here, if you click on the volunteer lawyers, it has a list of the lawyers and the law firms, at least some of them here. There's a larger list on the other screen, but these are some of the lawyers initially who jumped on with their firms to offer free assistance to people that are trying to get information and guidance and direction on how to bring a family that are, basically leverage off of whatever immigration programs that are out there. Alicia, do you have any insights on this that you can share? We've got you right here as our point of contact. All of us in the firm are always jumping on and trying to we'll be here to support in every way, but you're the main point of contact for our firm. But any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so the way it works is it does need to be somebody who's affected by the crisis in Ukraine, right? It's pertaining to this specifically. So there's a little disclaimer on the website that says, it's up to the lawyers to get more information about your case and what's going on in your circumstances. But this is how you request it. You fill out the form. It's a pretty simple form, and then this gets forwarded to the lawyer in question who may have capacity to help, and then we will try to get back to you, within a reasonable amount of time. So yeah, there's the drop down list of all the people here that you can access through the form as well. So this is how you find us through the request for pro bono assistance. Again, pro bono means free. So um, depending on the lawyer, we can't guarantee we're going to, file an application for you, but definitely giving some advice and direction and making sure that you're headed off in the right application category.
Yep. And we also want to alert you to the Facebook page for the CBA Immigration Law section. And on the Facebook page here, um, tomorrow there's going to be a live stream on the CBA Immigration, and Alicia's going to be there. Anna, who's also in Alberta, and Bjorna. We're and Nicole. I think Nicole is in BC. Is that where Nicole is? I can't remember.
I
But
think
all
so.
of these fine lawyers here on the panel are all based in Alberta, and it's a special live stream just talking about, what the lawyers are trying to do, and March 11th. So go here and make sure that you click that you're interested. And this is Facebook, so that's where it is. And it's not ours; it's the CBA Immigration. But Alicia is there doing her part, which we really appreciate that. All right. Okay, well, let's see who's tuned in here. It's interesting as we do these. the work doesn't stop, and I have to turn on my do not disturb because there's a bunch of stuff happening with the CBA right now that's popping up on my screen. So, okay, we'll block that out and I'll deal with it after we get off the live stream here. Okay, let's see what we have here. So John is connected in. Oh, we got to shrink this down. This is a little bit bigger. Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate that. Okay, God bless both of you. Thank you. Okay, let's see who else we have here. Ali's here. He's tuned in. And Yoon Chen is here as well. Hello, good to see you. George, as always, is in the house. One of our alumnus who's come through the Canadian Immigration Institute and the courses. And so it's great to have you. Those of you who are posting the questions, just hold off just for a second and we'll jump back to those questions in just a moment. Shaw says, hey, Mark and Alicia, hope both of you are fine. Always appreciate your efforts for all of us. You're very, very welcome. And let's see who else we've got here. Okay, here's Raj here. Raj, my recommendation is that you book a consultation, my friend, if you absolutely want your question to be answered. We will do the very best we can to get through as many as we can. But the reality is we try to pick and choose the ones that we feel are going to be the most beneficial to everyone here and that will really leverage those answers that we provide. So I'll watch for your question, Raj. I'll watch for it. And thanks for your persistence. Thesura, another alumnus. Good to see you. Very happy to hear, Thesura, that you got your PR card. That was awesome. And then look at who we have here, Alicia. Good morning, Anastasia. Great to see you. And so we're excited to have her and her husband come to Lethbridge, which is, of course, the greatest city in the country of Canada. So, okay, well, thank you, Marianne. You know who you are. She's posted a nice little comment there. We don't need to post that. Okay, and then Jewel says, Jamaica, do enjoy and appreciate your videos. And Nisha, so as you connect in, we love to hear where you're tuning in from. So please post in the comments whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, although we've had some issues with LinkedIn. Those of you who are watching over who saw the notification on LinkedIn, we're trying to figure out why the videos are not always being posted. So, and we've got Guillermo, good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so I guess one last little point of housekeeping that I want to address is I know that we have a lot of immigration consultants that watch and follow our channel. And finally, I can let you guys know that we have secured CPD accreditation. So obviously you go to the CIC site, and when you click on the link for upcoming CPD events right here, it will take you here to this big, massive list. And you'll see here, if you sort by name, that we have our very, very first offering right here. I know this is really tiny and hard for people to see, but we'll see if I can enlarge this a little bit. I'm not sure if I can. Let's see here. Yeah, I can a little bit. Okay, so you can see here for the Canadian Immigration Institute, our upcoming Express Entry step-by-step course, that starts on March the 14th. It actually goes at 5 p.m. every evening, March 14th through the 18th, but you are able to obtain 5 hours of CPD accreditation, and there's the landing page where you can click, which of course takes you right here to the Express Entry course. So those of you who are taking these courses can now get CPD accreditation for it. So I'd love to have you join us. We've got lots of room, obviously, in the Express Entry because things have slowed down a little bit, and it's probably as good a time as any if you are an immigration consultant or a lawyer who's looking for a little brush up on the Express Entry process. Now is a great time to do it when you're not busy doing Express Entry applications to kind of hone your skills. So we just thought we'd let everybody know about that. And let's dive in now. And why don't we jump into some questions? How does that sound, Alicia?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll go back and make sure that we don't miss anyone here. We wouldn't want that to happen. Okay, so let's start with John here. So John says, hi, Mark and Alicia. My spouse is a student at Toronto since last year, and we applied as an open work permit, and our children are students. Okay, on October 2021, we got our passport request and sent our passport to IRCC. Okay, we've got multiple parts here. But the problem is, until now, our passports are stuck there. and no clear answer about the delay. Sometimes we need to travel, but we have no passport, while IRCC Manila holds a long time. Thanks. Interesting. So I guess he's in the Philippines. John, I don't know how long that they've been holding your passport. It's not usually the practice of the visa offices to hold actual passports for a lengthy period of time. But I don't know, Alicia, if you have any thoughts on on what they can do in these circumstances, other than try to reach out, explain if you've got an urgent travel, and proceed that way.
Yeah. And it sounds like they are just renewing their passports and maybe the kids' passports as well. So, yeah, reach back out to IRCC Manila and try to say, here's my UCI number, here's my application number, here's when this was filed. It's been a very long time. And yeah, if you do actually have to travel, then indicate the date that you have to travel and the fact that you'll need your passports back in order to do that.
Perfect. Okay, next question's comment from Shaw. He says, always appreciate your efforts for all of us. Well, you're very, very welcome. Okay, here we go. We're celebrating now because we're answering Raj's question. So he's been very patient and hung on for 3 sessions, 3 lives to get his question answered. So let's see if we can even answer this for Raj. So PNP, Express Entry, Outland, AOR, November 21st, or maybe November 2021. Probably that's it. Passport going to expire in October of 2022. Should I renew it now, or I wait for the passport request and then renew it? Do I need to inform both the province and IRCC, or only IRCC about the renewal? So what do you think,
Yeah.
Alicia?
This is always a hard one. I've had a few people in this situation, and you can take a look, see where your application is in process, if you have any indication of where it is and what's been happening, and when was the last time that you sent in your medicals, and have you done biometrics, and have they requested anything else, or the police certificate's going to expire. But yeah, if you are eligible to extend your passport and you're right at the cusp of being able to do that now, and you haven't heard anything from immigration, you can do that. You can figure out how long it's going to take to get your passport, your new passport. Um, if it's going to take months and months and months, you might want to reconsider. But if it's reasonably quick, right, if you're going to get that back within a month or so, then that's pretty easy, because even if IRCC were to say, all right, I'm done, I'm processing, I want your passport for final, issuance of documents right now, they usually give you 30 days and you can ask for an extension, a reasonable extension. And the reason would be, I've sent in a passport renewal, right? So probably check with your local passport office to see how long it's going to take, but it should be reasonable for you to do that.
Okay. All right. Next question is from Shale. There are no stupid questions here, Shale. So how many times a year does the ONP conduct draws? Also, do they have a schedule for the draws? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that, Alicia?
So, I mean, maybe we can load up the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program program updates, but that's where it'll be. So they're fairly regular. You can see which ones they're actually inviting to submit an application, and the schedule upon which they do that. So if you go here, yeah, notifications of interest through the ONP, and they will go through all the ones that they've done so far, which program they were under, what the cutoff was, how many notifications of interest were issued, what the CRS range was. And I know, Mark, we had been talking about the CRS ranges before. And for a little bit of time, the provincial nominee programs were only wanting to invite people in a bandwidth that was slightly lower than what you could get a regular draw under CEC or FSW federally. And so then some people were trying to artificially lower their CRS to try to be eligible for OINP. And the feedback that I believe we gave was, don't be too cute about it, right? Like, you don't want to be in a position where you're hiding points and then there's a possible misrep, or you've got to try to align things later. And so thankfully what's happened relatively recently is that the OINP said, doesn't matter what your CRS range is. You can basically go up to the maximum available points that you could get. You don't have to have it lower or lower than what you would be able to get an invitation to apply under if they were doing draws under Express Entry. So that's the good news. But this is where you find it. You go back to the OINP and you look at the notifications of interest, and it'll give you a breakdown of everything this year, everything last year. You can look historically.
Excellent. All right.
And actually,
Yeah.
Mark, I'll pop back to Raj's question too. I think he also had said, do I need to notify IRCC and the province if he's looking at a PNP program? Yes, you need to make sure that you notify both of them. So I just wanted to circle back to you, Raj, make sure that I answered all of your question.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Oh, here we go. So Tisha's feet, she says, hey, Mark and Alicia, do we need to update IRCC of short international trips like 10, maybe it's a 10-day trip somewhere. Let's see if we've got the the rest of Tisha's feet's question here. Okay, here we go. Let's go with this one. She says, a 10-day trip to Dubai that has been completed after submitting, well, the EAPR and getting AOR. P.S. You guys are awesome. Oh, wow. That's how you get your question answered.
I mean, it depends. If there's been anything that could affect the materiality of that trip, right? If it was important because you're doing a spousal sponsorship application maybe, and you've gone to visit your spouse, yes, you definitely want to inform them of that trip. I'm not sure what kind of application that you've
Probably express
submitted.
entry. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if it was express entry, then you have an obligation to keep them informed of changes in your address. When it's a 10-day trip, it's probably just a trip. It's not usually a change in your address, or you're not there for an extended period of time that would affect your address history. So if it's a longer period on a trip, then you might want to inform them. For sure, if there was any incident that happened, then you definitely want to inform them. But as long as there was no charges, no arrests, no criminality, no issues, then usually a
Yeah.
short trip shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And I take the same position as well. Short little trips like that. Yeah. IRCC really doesn't care about that. Only if it has some material impact on your application. So, Ralph, I'll give you a shout out to you. Hello, my friend. Okay. Ali says, I'm working 2 full-time jobs last year. I worked 2 full-time jobs last year. Should I put these 2 jobs on my express entry profile? Any problem for PR application you see? Thanks.
So, I mean, this is always, are you in Canada, or is this Canadian work, or is this, outside of Canada work? Is this foreign work experience, or is this Canadian work experience? Also, is this high skilled work experience? So is it National Occupation Classification Codes A, B, or O, or is it possibly NOC, C, and D? And the reason that that's important is because it's going to depend on what you can claim points for. So on your express entry profile, you're only going to put the jobs for which you are going to claim points. And if it doesn't qualify or it doesn't give you points, then for sure you have to disclose it later on if hopefully you get an invitation to apply, and then you disclose it in your personal history. But if it's not going to give you points, you'd only put it in your personal history. If it is going to give you points, so therefore, if it is higher skilled work, um, depending on whether it's in Canada or outside Canada, if it meets the definition of foreign work, then great. You can have overlapping jobs if you're looking at foreign work experience, so that's fine. You can also have overlapping jobs in Canada usually, but it depends on what kind of work permit status you have. So be careful if you're a student. You're not going to be able to rely on full-time student work experience for express entry, for example.
Okay, this question is from Sarah, and I'm sure many people that are tuning in and watching this. Any news on FSW draws, Mark? No news. But trust me, if I hear anything, you guys will be the first to know. First to know. All right. So yes, past another Canadian Immigration Institute alumnus. Hello, Hallie. It's Bree here. Sign up for the course, guys. Yeah, she just took one of the last ones, and yeah, I really appreciate that. There's nothing better than having someone who took the course that says, "Hey, it's totally worth it." So, and what she's referring to, those of you who are jumping on a little bit late, the Express Entry Masterclass is coming up March the 14th, right here, and then the following week, if I jump back here, the following week is the Spousal Sponsorship the second masterclass that we'll be doing with that one that starts March the 21st to the 25th. And so I'm in the process of getting CPD accreditation for this one as well, for immigration consultants. But hey, you guys that are looking to take it, you come out of this course and you are going to be well prepared to get your application prepared and submitted, avoiding those most common mistakes and errors. So, all right, let's see here. I'm just going to flip that. Okay. Fiona says, hi, Alicia and Mark. Nice initiative helping Ukrainians to immigrate. Love from Brazil. Muito obrigado, Fiona. Muito obrigado. Okay, let's see here. Okay, Shreya says, hello, Mark and Alicia. Hope you guys doing well. Any news about post-grad work permits? Please talk more about it. Everyone wants to know updates on it. Appreciate if you could answer. Thanks. Yes, we're still waiting, just like you guys. We have not heard the minister. I don't know what Minister Fraser is waiting for. Personally, I think it's a no-brainer, especially if they're truly holding off on the rounds of invitations, which many of you, if not all of you, have been counting on to secure PR. But I don't know, Alicia, have you heard anything through the winds of immigration blowing?
No, and well, okay, so there is one thing that they have done, but it's only going to help in very limited circumstances, and that's they did extend the public policy on interim work authorization. So there was a public policy that said if you have an employer who is going to be supporting you through a labor market impact assessment or an LMIA exempt work permit category, so ones that like under a free trade agreement or Canada, US, Mexico agreement, if you're a professional, if you have a specific job offer from that employer and you have held a valid work permit within the last 12 months at some point, then either if you are a visitor or if you still have a valid work permit, and you are submitting an application for another work permit to change or extend your conditions, then you can ask for interim authorization to work prior to your actual work permit decision coming through. And the reason that's important is it's taking like 4.5 months right now to get an answer back on a change of conditions from inside Canada. So they've extended that public policy. It was set to expire February 28th, 2022. They extended it to end of February 2023. But that's only going to help people who actually have held a valid work permit in the last 12 months, are still inside Canada. They either have visitor status or they're on a current work permit, and their employer is specifically helping them through an LMIA or an LMIA exemption. So there is that. But for a general PGWP, there has not been any announcement on that.
All right. Okay, next question is from Igor. And he says, applied for home support worker pilot 2 years ago. Sound familiar?
Oh no.
Yeah, I got the acknowledgement of receipt last year. I am inside Canada waiting. Should I apply for a work permit with LMIA? Is IRCC going to expedite this? We do have to, one thing I do have to let people know is that anytime that you guys ask, what should I do in these circumstances, it's really one of these, which is, we would direct you to slide back here and go to our website and book a consultation for sure. The reality is with this program, it has been an absolute gong show. The last question that you asked, I can answer. Is IRCC going to expedite this pathway? No, they are not. We've had it let's see, when was it? Monday? Everything's a blur this week. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. We had our monthly IRCC IP calls, which is with the immigration practitioners. And this was a question that people brought up. And there has been very, very little movement with this. I don't know if anyone has actually had one of these formally approved. So everybody is queued up. It was heralded as a wonderful new program that would allow people to immigrate direct almost. And but what the reality is, they're just not issuing these things. So it's hard to say, and Alicia, I'll defer to you a little bit on this one. It's hard to say whether, going forward with a work permit with an LMIA is something that you should consider. We need a lot more information, but what are your thoughts on this, Alicia?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to get processed, if you're not able to have permanent residence soon or a pathway for a work permit through the home support worker pilot soon, then if your status is expiring and you've got an employer who's willing to go through the LMIA process, then, all right, let's maybe look at some other options. So it is hard to say, Igor, unless there's more information about your specific situation. But generally, if there is a possibility for getting a work permit, then maybe you pursue that.
Yeah. Here is a challenging question right here from Vishal. So, working on maintain status. So, I'm not sure what the nature of this, Alicia, is the work permit that he's applied for, if it's like a bridge for a PR or something. But, anyways, so he's applied, has not yet received a decision on the work permit, and he needs to visit India. He says his father in law was diagnosed with cancer last stage. Our heart goes out to you, Vishal, you and your spouse, and all of your family. I know I would lose status once I leave, but can I re-enter Canada as a visitor? And he does have a TRV that's valid till 2025.
Hmm.
So in the same light, I would, in this type of a situation, we'd ring the bell and say, Vishal, really, you should reach out and book a consult and we can talk about the logistics of this. But Alicia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and it is really hard, Vishal, without knowing, have you submitted an application under a provincial nominee program? Are you in process through other sorts of, permanent residence applications? Is it only a work permit? How long have you been here? Is your employer okay with you? Like if it was an employer supported work permit, are they okay with you taking a leave? Um, because if you did submit an application for an extension on your work permit and you're waiting for the new decision, then yeah, as soon as you leave the country, that application is deemed to be abandoned. You no longer have the ability to come back in and work because you've lost that maintained status. So it's a big deal to sacrifice your ability to come back and work, and that might have fairly far-reaching consequences depending on what kind of future you're looking at pursuing in Canada. If you were looking at working towards, Canadian experience to qualify for your 1 year of Canadian work, I don't know if you're on postgrad or your spouse is maybe. So it's hard to say. Um, it is good that you have a TRV that's valid to 2025 because theoretically, if you are able to come back under, a new visitor entry, then hopefully as long as you can show your continued temporary intent and your ties back to your home country and the reason for why you left, you should be able to make an argument. But I don't know what your underlying status is or who had the underlying status between you and your spouse or where your spouse is.
Yeah. And I'll just add in as well, having worked on the border as an officer in a previous life, in a situation like this, Vishal, there will be compassion on the part of the CBSA officers. If you can establish, yes, this is what happened, I left. When it comes to coming in as a visitor, and this is not, taking into consideration all the other factors, if you can justify all those things that Alicia has talked about, generally speaking, an officer, if you're able to get on the plane with your TRV and fly to Canada and explain what happened, and you have a plan going forward for your permanent residence, either it's still in the queue or you've got means of supporting yourself, even though you're not able to work, or there's some other backup in place. Officers generally, when you've got a plan in place, will be facilitative. But we, neither Alicia nor I, would really advise anyone to leave when they have their whole PR resting on the ability to maintain that status. But it's horrible. You've sacrificed so much to be here already, and to have something, so horrible, like your father-in-law being diagnosed with cancer, and have to make that decision. Do I stay and make sure that I don't lose my PR option if that's the case here? Or do I risk never seeing him again? And obviously with your spouse, we don't know her situation, if she's here with you and if she's going back with her father, obviously. So that's sometimes why it's useful to book a consultation so we can canvass all of this together.
Yeah, one thing to add to that too is, maybe if you've submitted that application a while ago and it's been in process for a while, you might be able to get documentation from your spouse's side of the family to show the diagnosis, the fact that, your father-in-law has been given this amount of time and what the medical treatment is going to be and the fact that there's a doctor's letter on file. You might do a web form and just say, look, I've submitted this application X number of months ago. Please, if you are able to expedite the finalization of my work
Yeah.
permit because I have an urgent reason that I need to travel and I really want to, not sacrifice my ability to come back on a work permit. So that's one thing that may be possible.
Next question is from Yash, and he also mentions, are they going to implement this 18-month, it's not really an extension, but a new policy to allow current post-grad work permit holders to request another one? Yes, we are, we've been doing everything that we can, submissions and otherwise, to the government on this issue. I think everybody has been. They're well aware of it. I'm not sure what they're waiting for. I'll be honest, Alicia. I don't know what would prevent them from proceeding forward with this. Um, given
I
all
I
of the
think
challenges. Yeah,
I think they
please.
might be overwhelmed with the new announced programs for Ukraine. I think is probably what's happened is they're now trying to hurry to implement these two emergency programs. One is for this emergency travel authorization, and the other one is for creating a new pathway for sponsorships for immediate and extended family members. So it might be that they've just, you know, they were completely inundated and they've got to create new programs and pathways and temporary measures and all sorts of things on the Ukraine crisis, and
Yeah.
that may have derailed them.
Yeah. And I know, when I talk to people that are in this situation, there's a large cohort of people that are being caught by these, post-grad work permits expiring and no CEC draws. And
Yeah.
the policy is already there. All the infrastructure is already there. The website's
Hmm.
already created. All they have to do is change the date and relaunch it, essentially. And so I'm not going to give them a pass anymore, Alicia, on this. This is something that, notwithstanding everything else, and like I said, we as Canadian Bar Association are doing everything that we can to support and to provide assistance to people that are in these situations. And so yeah, I wish that the minister would just take care of this, get it done, and then move on and focus all the necessary resources to help with the Ukraine crisis.
And I,
Um,
I do want to give a shout out to the Canadian Bar Association. So this is pro bono. This is lawyers who are just volunteering their time. But there is a submission that the Canadian Bar Association has made with formal recommendations to the immigration minister about measures that can be implemented to try to help people in these situations who have postgrad work permits expiring. And so if you do go to the Canadian Bar Association website, there's public submission letters that are there.
yeah.
And this is one of them. And it's helpful to read because this is what lawyers across the country are trying to advocate for, and not just for a specific client, but because it makes sound policy rationale. And they've outlined how they could possibly do this program, what the temporary measures would be, what the permanent resident pathway things might look like. So it is helpful if you're interested just to see what immigration lawyers are advocating for.
Yes, and I'm just trying to, this is the fun part here. I can kind of try to work in the background. The submissions and resolutions that the immigration law section have put out are here. I'm not sure if this one has yet been released. We have, we've this one right here, extension of temporary public policy and temporary pilot process. This is the specific one that that we drafted and was officially transmitted about 9 days, 8, 9 days ago. And even here, the same one, there was a two-prong approach here, facilitating transition of international students. So we are absolutely advocating, and when we formed these working groups, I was on both of these myself, but the lawyers that held the pen, that put this together, and these are not just simple little, here's a couple ideas. Like, these are
Right.
formal submissions. These are directed to Malcolm Meals, who is the director for TR program delivery, and there's a lot that we put in here in these submissions, and so we, yeah, so understand that this is just one of the additional ways, in addition to everything else, that we are constantly advocating within the Canadian Bar Association. And yes, we're wrestling with the alligators for you guys. We're doing all that we can to try to promote. It's not just about us lining our pockets with money, right? This is legitimately doing our best to try to help people. So, all right, let's jump over here. So Mo says, any news about the citizenship fee being waived? So this, okay, it's hard. I don't want to betray my political persuasion, but this was a part of campaign campaigning for the Liberal Party that they were going to remove this. And so there's steps that have to be taken place to do that. And, they're definitely inundated with other responsibilities, and we expect that it will eventually come. But have you heard anything, Alicia, about any timelines on this?
I've not heard anything on timelines. I mean, it's supposed to come, and it is something I'm pretty sure that was also discussed in the mandate letter as well. But similarly, I mean, the whole spousal TRV was discussed in the
It
mandate
was.
letter, and that hasn't come yet either. So
Well, I
they
can add
know
to
about
that,
it.
Alicia. I can add my own thoughts on that spousal TRV. When we brought that up in our meeting, I think it was 2 months ago, when we brought this
Mhm.
up with the IRCCIP meeting, they basically said, "Oh yeah, no action's been taken on that, but we've already done things," which is basically a reference to that, the little publication they did saying officers are being facilitative in the issuance of regular visitor visas in the context of spousal sponsorship, which is complete garbage in the context of the vast majority of countries around the world. Maybe they're facilitative in the issuance of an ETA, which has nothing to do with the spousal sponsorship for someone coming from the UK. But that is not the case from India, and
Yeah,
nothing has changed. And so it would be great to see them, not only, waive the citizenship fee like they had indicated, but also to, to make changes with how they process spousal sponsorships and the separation of families.
yeah,
And I think about this too, and our country's bleeding money. There's so much deficit, so much debt, and the concept of waiving, what is it, a $600+ fee for an application, that's revenues in the coffer. And so I could see pushback. Oh, with the pandemic, we're not in a position to do that anymore, and let's just stall it and hold off, right? But of course, that's speculation. So no, we don't have any news about it. Mo.
yeah.
Okay, Ahmed says, should my Canadian wife who never lived in Canada apply for spousal sponsorship inland or out? I have visitor visa. We are planning to move to Canada July. Okay, this one, my friend, I'll let you tackle this, Alicia, but there's problems all over here, Ahmed. Lots of problems.
Oh dear. Okay.
Where do you want to
So,
start?
yeah. So, in order to sponsor, and if you're the Canadian spouse, you have to prove that either you are living in Canada or you have a very solid plan and an intention to live in Canada in a province other than Quebec, unless you want to go through the whole Quebec provincial process also. So that's the first problem. If your Canadian wife has never lived in Canada, it'll be an issue. Um, in terms of, do you do an inside Canada or an outside Canada? I have written a blog article on this. So, are you eligible is one, and
Yeah.
eligibility involves, are you living in Canada? Do you have an intent to move back to Canada? Can you prove that you have an intent to move back to Canada and establish yourself? So that's the first issue. The second issue is, well, if your spouse is not in Canada and they are going to come with you, um, I'm not sure how you're coming. I don't know if you're applying for a visitor visa
Well,
or.
that's just it, Alicia. Like when I look at the question that he's posed here, he says that he has a visitor visa. So if you guys have visitor visas, and let's see here, has never lived in Canada. Yeah, if you both have visitor visas, well, I'm not quite sure how this works. So your Canadian wife does have the ability to start the process before you travel to Canada. So if she's
Yeah.
living with you, Canadian citizens do have the right to sponsor, while they're outside of the country. And yes, you can, on a visitor visa, travel back if you're admitted and you can satisfy the officer and submit that application from within Canada. You have the ability to do that. So you have both of those options, both of those choices. But understand, maybe Alicia, you can talk a little bit about the open work permit process and how long Ahmed will be sitting here in Canada doing this, right? Like
Yeah.
twiddling his thumbs.
Yeah. So the first thing is, okay, if you're coming in as a visitor on a visitor visa, but your wife's never lived in Canada, she is Canadian, but she's coming back with you, they're going to say, well, what's your proof of temporary intent? Because if your wife says, well, I'm going to sponsor him, then that's a permanent intent. And so you also have to prove your temporary intent. You're allowed to have a dual intent, but you cannot lose that temporary intent. So you can't show up to the border and say, I'm moving to Canada today with my wife, because you're going to get turned around and sent back to wherever your country of citizenship is. But if you can legitimately show connection and ties to your home country, then maybe you can say, look, I've got a valid temporary intent, and then also my wife is going to be submitting a spousal sponsorship for me. Take a look at the Inside Canada versus Outside Canada sponsorship article, because there are risks and benefits of inside versus outside. If you're doing an Inside Canada application, you've got to maintain your temporary status while you're here the whole time.
Yeah.
And you have to show, especially if your Canadian spouse doesn't have any time spent in Canada or employment history in Canada, how you guys are going to support each other without going on social assistance. And so if you're doing an Inside Canada application and hoping for that open spousal work permit right away, it's probably going to be like maybe 8 months, best case, before
Yeah.
you might get an open spousal work permit. And in the meantime, you still had to maintain your status. And in the meantime, you still had to show you could support yourself financially. And if you have a visitor visa, you can't work.
Yeah. And many, like what we've been seeing with these in Canada spouses and open work permits, that the open work permits aren't even being issued in some instances, and permanent residence is being granted, and then the fee is being returned for the work permit. And this is also something that we've brought up with IRCC. Why in the world do you even give that as an option if it's not even a meaningful, reality in the circumstances? So yeah. But once again, like I keep doing this, but it's one of these, Ahmed. And I think
Mhm.
you would benefit from booking a consult so that we can go through this and navigate it. You do not want to pick up and close all your ties with your home country. I'm not sure if you're coming from Egypt or where you are, but and then run into a big surprise. Often with our clients, when they retain us to help them, we love it when they do that as early as possible in the process so we can help them to navigate this. And we deal with this all the time. Like Alicia's probably got 3 or 4 clients that were in this process of being abroad and then returning and strategizing how best to do this. And we will often provide letters for our clients that confirm our representation. And once again, kind of infusing a little bit of experience working on the border. Officers, when you are traveling to Canada with your spouse, they have every ability in the world to turn you back. But generally speaking, if you can present a plan, like Alicia indicated, that indicates, hey, we've already retained counsel. They're going to help us file the in Canada as soon as we're here. And, generally speaking, the vast majority of officers won't return you and send you back when you've got all of your valid stuff in place. But we have definitely heard of that happening. And so sometimes we have a little letter that confirms, and the officers will look at the letter and say, how much you pay for this letter, right? But the reality is, even though they kind of poo-poo it, they recognize you're serious and that you have a plan and you're not just going to come and just hang out in Canada without filing it. That's what they really don't like, at least the border officers.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Ravaraj says, want to celebrate the marriage anniversary on the 2nd of May. Applied for a spousal open work permit in December of 21, then a visitor visa in January of this year. No response yet. Can I reapply using the fancy new IRCC portal in order to get faster visa? I'm fed up with waiting.
Hmm. So I'm wondering if you might be in India because they have at least year long
It's
processing
horrible.
times.
It is horrible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I someone chimed in, Alicia, yesterday in my I can't remember which country in Africa, but the stated processing times went from, I think it was 17 days to, oh, it was crazy. It was like 700. And I was trying to figure out
Oh
what
no.
kind of application tracks by days. But it must have been a visitor. I can't remember, but it was crazy. It was over 2 years to
Mhm.
process. And ironically, that's what I told Minister Fraser, the very last comment that I made to him before we ended our I can't remember if it was Zoom or Teams, whatever, with my fellow table officers, I said, look, it's one thing to be inundated with an inability to process in a timely fashion. He finished telling us that, I would take anyone that could walk and breathe, we would be considering hiring them. We just are really struggling finding people. And welcome to Canada. So there you go. Now that's an indicator of the job market. But he said, if I could hire them, I would. And I said, okay, that's fine. But whatever you do, at least post the accurate processing times, because it's
Yeah.
completely unfair to people to expect that their application is going to be processed in 17 days. They plan their life accordingly. And then, it's 700 days. So in those circumstances, yeah, he's followed my instructions. And so he did what I asked him to do. And now that's what we're seeing. So this is a tough one though, Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, if you did file that spousal open work permit December 2021, I mean, that's over a year now. Maybe that has a chance of getting processed. You can try doing, I don't know if you have a family member or somebody in Canada that you can do that, or hopefully you would if you're there, if you're applying for that open spousal work permit, you should have a spouse here who can help do that for you. But apply for your GCMS notes and just try to figure out what stage you're at in the processing of your spousal open work permit is one thing that you might want to try. There's a $5 government search fee to do that. The visitor visa, I have less hope for because I think, yeah, the processing time right now for the visitor visa, or this is the work permit.
Yeah, work permit
Yeah,
India is 55 weeks.
yeah.
So
So you're right around the time of theoretically when they should be processing the work permit, the spousal open work permit. Do you want to toggle over to the
oh,
visitor
sorry.
on that,
Yeah,
Mark?
yeah, let's do that.
And just see, if you've just submitted that visitor visa application, um,
Hmm.
that one's got a 95-day.
And this is the hard part, right? Because this 95 day, you can see it's still qualified. And
Mhm,
learn how processing times are calculated. Well, this is a mix. This is a mix
mhm,
of the legacy and then what they're talking about here, this new portal, the temporary portal outside of GCMS.
mhm.
Some people, and this is the hard part, is there's rumors, right? Right, Ravi? There's rumors that people are getting their visitor visas processed faster through this. And one thing you have to realize is that it creates mass confusion for immigration when you have multiple applications in the queue,
Right.
and it can actually work against you. What did you put in that first one? Is there something conflicting in the second one? And ultimately, is an officer going to look at it and say, refuse? This is just too much hassle for me. And with Chinook and the other systems they're using, this is not, it's not easily resolved. So I don't know if I don't know how I would answer this. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have any other insight. Yeah.
you'd have to take a look, make sure you've done everything correctly on both those applications. They're all consistent, but it sounds like hopefully you're not that far away from getting a decision, at least on that spousal open work permit, which is, I think, probably the one you really want.
Yeah, I think so as well. Okay, let's see if we can jump back here and get back into the queue here. That's the one of the challenging parts when I'm jumping back between the super chats and the regular ones here. It's trying to figure out, and we have we've got over 100 people that are watching right now. So let's see. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, let's try Nisha here. So Nisha's got a postgrad work permit, which will expire 2023 June. 1 year of management experience is coming up in July. Should I apply CAC if it resumes, or OINP? How soon can I start preparing my docs for OINP?
Okay, well, Yeah, if you've got 1 year of Canadian work experience, make sure that it absolutely is 1 year. So 52 weeks, at least 30 hours a week of full-time employment. And because of the pandemic and there have been business shutdowns because people have been ill and on extended medical leave, make sure you for sure have those 52 weeks. And it doesn't have to be for CEC, it doesn't have to be consecutive, right? It doesn't have to be continuous with no break, but you do have to make sure that you can prove that you have those 52 weeks in total. So keep careful tabs on that. If you do qualify for that, then sure, you can put in your express entry profile as long as you've got your, I don't know, I assume you've done your education in Canada. If you've got your PGWP, you might have something else outside. But if your highest level of education was in Canada, as long as you have that and as long as you have your language test results, you can create your express entry profile. Um, Make sure that you properly account for what your not category is. Make sure you've picked it properly depending on what your job description is. But you can also look at if you're going to be eligible for one of the OINP categories. And so take a careful look at what categories are available to you. I don't know if maybe you went to school in Ontario or not, what your job category is, what your knock is, and whether your employer is going to support you. Because a number of them require that job offer letter of support. And there's parameters on what kind of employers qualify, whether they're in the greater Toronto area or not, how much revenue they make, how many employees they have. So you can definitely take a look. Keep in mind, OINP is one of the ones where it's a separate application process. So in addition to having your express entry profile, you also have to submit, a different, if you get a notification of interest, that's great, but a different application with a different application fee to be able to be eligible for that program.
Okay, let's jump to Harish. And Harish says, how many days does it take to process TR to PR? Because it's been showing background verification from the past 3 months. And yeah, so understand, Harish, built into the levels plans is processing of TR to PR applications all the way into next year, 2023. And there are individuals who submitted under the International Grad May 6th, the very first day when it opened up, who have not had their applications processed. And so understand, and I think from what I looked at, I think there's been about 40,000 that have actually been processed, but things have definitely ground to a halt because initially they were processing using visitor officers that processed visitor visas. And then once the borders opened up, then those officers were returned back to processing visitor visa applications. And so they don't have the same number of officers. And when you have the Afghan crisis and the Ukraine crisis and so they specifically told us, once again, this question, you guys are asking the things that, when you ask, then we ask immigration. And they basically told us about processing times. We don't have any. In fact, it's not a requirement and they will get processed as they get processed. And it's not a high priority. And individuals who are going through these programs, traditionally have the ability to continue working. And so we're not too fussed about it. And we will get to them as we get to them. So is it a priority? No. Is it surprising that you've been 3 months? Not at all. And this is very, very common, very common. So you've got a long haul still, and I would definitely expect that you've got, many, many months more to go. So, and that's as
And just
real as I can be.
Yeah, and just, be careful to maintain your status, right? Make sure that you look at the expiry dates on your work permit, make sure that you're doing that application to extend before you're getting close to your deadline. The other thing too is that this was a humanitarian and compassionate application under the TR to PR, and those don't have any standard processing times. And so it kind of cuts both ways, right? It was able to be implemented that circumvents the normal rigid rules, but it also doesn't have a service standard the same way that, for example, the economic categories do.
Okay, Guillermo says, my wife and I have a TR visa. We're outside of Canada. I'd like to know if we can enter Canada being vaccinated with a vaccine not authorized by Canada.
So this is on the website. If you go to the travel restrictions page on the IRCC Come to Canada, and it'll take you through a questionnaire of are you eligible to come to Canada? And So there are exemptions to the general rule, but generally you have to be vaccinated. Yeah, check if you can qualify as a fully vaccinated traveler. They go through the list of here are the vaccines that Canada does accept. They extended that list. So it used to be a smaller list of vaccines that they would consider. They've expanded it. So some of the common ones that were used by countries outside of Canada are now on the accepted list. So double check that to make sure. But generally, if you're not on here, then it's going to be really hard for you to come unless you meet one of the other travel restriction exemptions. And there are very specific categories for who can come under what circumstances for that. There are new measures being announced for Ukrainian nationals who are not vaccinated. But unless you fit one of the exemptions or one of the new Ukrainian exemptions, then probably not.
Okay. All right. Now let's see here. I'm not sure if we can answer this one, Jeevan. He says, review of additional documents in my CAC account reflects not applicable. Does that mean delay in my passport request? AOR September 2020. P.S. You guys are awesome. Wow. That's awesome. I can't tell what this emoji you got this, what that emoji is. I know you guys are doing some good stuff and it doesn't always translate. So, but yeah, as far as not applicable, I'll be honest, Stephen, I don't have an answer for that. I'm not sure exactly how that fits in. If you've, with your GCMS, if you obtain those notes, we need to look at that in more detail. So I don't actually know what that would be referring to. And then look at who we have here, Alicia. Bright. So greetings. And Bright, have you connected with us? Because I was talking with Alicia about you. So we're happy to assist, my friend. So just connect and yeah, we're happy to connect with you and assist and follow that forward after your consult. So, okay. Do you want to tackle this one, Alicia? This goes through so many different directions.
Okay, so
Yeah, so I'll just read it for and this is something that I forgot to respond to as well. These actually are going to be pushed out to our podcast as well, and I should have probably done a better intro saying hello to those who are listening into this through the Canadian Immigration Podcast. But the question here from Chitty Boy is he's from Kenya, and I'd like to work in Canada. I need a genuine agent from Canada. And boy, is that not a more clear, truthful statement in the history of the world than people need to have a genuine agent.
all right, so Chanel has written an article on this,
Mm-hmm.
on, if you're looking for recruiters, maybe, but if you're just looking for somebody who's going to give you solid immigration legal advice, then please hire an immigration lawyer, my friend, is the advice that I would give to you. So depending on what kind of work that you're looking at doing in Canada, you should not be paying an employer's agent or a recruiter in Canada for them to place you for a job if you're highly qualified. So job offers in general are mediated through a company knowing you, looking at your resume, thinking that you're qualified for the job, or in some cases, there are recruiters who are hired by that company to try to find talent overseas. And those people are employed by the Canadian company. That's how they get paid. They should not be charging you anything for that. One way that you can, take a look at Chanel's article because she goes through these things in a little bit more detail, and there's a podcast link to that as well. But if you are looking for a job in Canada, it can be a difficult thing, right? It's hard to try to get your foot in the door if people don't know you. And so that's where, if you know somebody in Canada, if you have coworkers or friends or people that know what your background is and your employment history and your education, then maybe that's a way that you can start trying to network. There is the ability to look at the Canada Job Bank. So that's the federal basically registry for employers in Canada who are posting labor market impact assessments. if you are in Canada and you have valid ability to work there, you can sign up for Job Match. If not, then you can at least look at the employers who are hiring under that, and that might give you at least a starting point in terms of who you might want to try to target to reach out to yourself.
Yeah. And for those listening, the blog is entitled All You Need to Know About Job Offers in Canada. And that was written by Chanel Rosenbaum, one of our associate lawyers, it was released December the 9th on our firm website. And we did a video on this as well as, and the podcast, you can check out episode 89 of the Canadian Immigration Podcast, and that's where you can find that one. So I think we are just about at the end here, Alicia, of our time. And we have, this has been really good. And I appreciate everybody that's been posting questions, and it's your questions that really breathe life into these live Q&As. So we appreciate you being here. We'll be back again on Wednesday of next week, and Wednesday at 10 a.m. with me, Thursday at 11 a.m. with Alicia, with me kind of navigating the technical aspects of this and throwing in a few comments. And so, great to have you here. As a reminder, always, the Canadian Immigration Institute, if I flip back here, we have our course for Express Entry. The master class is starting on Monday, March the 14th. There's a link in the description here on the YouTube video and the Facebook. There's a link you can click and join. Remember, if you're an immigration consultant, you can get CPD credit, 5 hours of credit for the course, and you can learn more all about it. There is hours and hours and hours of video content telling you and teaching you and showing you exactly how to prepare and submit your Express Entry application step by step. And both the PR, the profile, as well as the EAPR. And then remember, on March the 21st, the following week, the card is all open for the spousal sponsorship course. And it's going to be really neat because we are now hosting all of this within our own site, our own community group, not Facebook. Some people have expressed frustration a little bit with the Facebook, the private groups and stuff. But now we're doing all of it internally, and the videos will be posted here on the YouTube channel, but it will be a private link for those that subscribe. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate your time. And if we can ever be of any assistance, you guys know where to find us. Take care.